stories high. That's the Ministry of Information, and it is behind the Ministry of Information where the fire and the smoke were coming from a little earlier. That's where Iraqi television station is. Immediately behind the Ministry of Information, there's a small Christian church. Then there's a theater. Then there's that area of Iraqi television studios. Of course, to take out Iraqi television, it's not just a matter of hitting the studios, but also the transmitters as well. And Iraqi television's satellite channel has its satellite located just behind the Ministry of Information. And I did hear earlier that was still broadcasting and on the air. Aaron?
Nick, there is more than one TV network in Iraq, isn't there? Or TV channel?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a state-run main station that perhaps most people would watch. There's also the station run by President Saddam Hussein's elder son, Uday Saddam Hussein. That's called Shabab TV or Youth TV. That's a station you may have seen pictures aired on today. It has quite a sort of a funny colored logo in the bottom right-hand corner. That was the station we saw today with the soldiers, with the pictures of the soldiers in those defensive trenches wearing the strange black helmets with the shoulder-launched RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades. So there is two ways of getting the domestic television picture out in Iraq. And not only is there the television stations, but there's also the radio broadcast we've heard a lot about. Of course, many Iraqis will tune into the radio rather than television to pick up messages from the leadership. But perhaps if Iraqi television has been taken off the air here, Aaron, and this is them going black now, that will take away a very important tool from the Iraqi leadership, that of showing their face, getting their message out to Iraqi people and really telling them that they are still in control. Aaron?
And in fact, a lot of people wondered why Iraqi TV had been allowed to stay on the air, why the coalition allowed Iraqi TV to stay on the air as long as it did. I suppose it had some value also to the coalition in that it allowed the coalition to see the Iraqi leadership, who was there, who was not there, but apparently that value ran out today.
Apparently, it was very interesting on the first day of the bombing campaign to watch how quickly President Saddam Hussein came out on television. So there are very quick sort of checks, if you will, for, as you say, for the coalition to see what was going on. Perhaps they did have another use, and I only say perhaps at this stage because no coalition officials have told me this, but there perhaps would be a degree of bomb damage assessment value in having Iraqi television on the air, because perhaps they would go to sites and film sites that have been bombed, those pictures getting out on Iraqi television, giving the coalition valuable ground-level information that just cannot be gained from satellite imagery. So perhaps there may have been some value or some use there as well, Aaron.
One other thing, in this day and age with the Al Jazeeras and the rest that are out there, is for the people of Iraq, is Iraqi TV, either of the two networks, to a certain extent, it's a distinction without difference because they are essentially under the same control. Are there other ways to get TV signals in?
Not really. I mean, okay. The Arab broadcasters broadcast into the region, but their satellite dishes and receivers are banned, so ordinary Iraqis just don't have access to them. So they won't be able to pick up these other broadcasts. So really, their television sets at this time will go dark, Aaron, if the station is truly knocked off the air.
Nick, thank you. Nick Robertson, who's in Jordan tonight, having been expelled by the Iraqi government a couple of days ago. But we see him pushing back towards the story, as it were, towards the war. This attack on the Iraqi television networks, or Iraqi TV, was part of a broader attack that took place early this morning in Baghdad. We do have some images of that that have come in from Abu Dhabi TV, I believe, and perhaps others. And we'll get those. There we go. These coming from Al Jazeera, apparently. This is how it looked. It was just before the sun came up in the Persian Gulf. It's now about 6 minutes after 6 o'clock out there when the strike occurred. There, you'll see a large explosion. That is not the hit, we do not believe, the hit on Iraqi TV, but it was part of a larger attack, that some of which was in camera range and some of which was not. And that's the scene right now in Baghdad. Lots of smoke filtering across the horizon line after this coalition airstrike, and we'll keep an eye on that. Overall, as we start tonight, a mix, I think you could say, of progress and obstacles today. And as you can see, even looking at these pictures and looking at Nick a few moments ago, the weather played a huge role in what was able to be accomplished by the coalition side. They are drawing closer to Baghdad all the time, but there is still much to be done behind them. The headline tonight, therefore, is really a night of many headlines, no single one, and we'll get through them as we go. But we begin with a quick overview of the day.
Whether it was a blinding sandstorm in the central part of the country or a downpour in the south near Basra, weather was the dominant factor in the war against Iraq today.
It's like being in a blizzard, except unfortunately the sand doesn't melt as the snow does.
Overall, here's what the landscape looks like tonight. Coalition ground units continue to make a broad sweep towards Baghdad. Elements of the Army's 3rd Infantry Division are 50 miles to the south and west of the Iraqi capital, and late today were engaged in a major battle with Iraqi units south of the city of Karbala. The British, meantime, are encircling Iraq's 2nd largest city, Basra.
In the 5 days since military action began, a huge amount has already been achieved.
Inside Basra, there were the smallest of hints that an uprising may have begun against Saddam Hussein. These pictures of a single gunman firing into the air and destroying a picture of Saddam are certainly not definitive proof. They are a hint, that's all. But British officials say at least it is a positive sign. Meantime, Iraqi television broadcasts these pictures of a coalition drone aircraft shot down and then paraded through the streets of Basra. No firm proof of chemical weapons was found today, but as far as the coalition was concerned, there were hints. Marines seized a hospital in the battered city of Nasiriyah and said they seized thousands of chemical weapons suits as well as conventional weapons. And finally, the southernmost Iraqi city of Qasr was declared under coalition control, finally, and the Navy actually brought in dolphins to help detect underwater mines.
Quick overview of where the day has gone and a quick update on where the day is now. Excuse me, all of the reporting we've been able to do now confirms that Iraqi state TV is off the air, that the coalition strike a little bit ago, an hour or so ago, has taken Iraqi TV off the air. There were other targets hit, but as you look at Baghdad now, you see the smoke. You saw a fire engine going by. Here's another shot from another location. This is the Lebanese broadcasting company, I believe, and the smoke there is quite dense. I'm not honestly sure if what is behind that building is the Iraqi State TV complex of buildings, as Nick Robertson described, or whether that's one of the other sites that was hit. But in any case, you can see that in the daylight, lots of smoke in Baghdad today, and among things that we can be certain of, despite all of the weather problems, and you're about to get a very good taste of the kind of weather they had there today. Despite all the weather problems, the coalition was still able to move in from the sky and do the business that it intends to do in the Iraqi capital and very likely in other places too, and we'll be keeping an eye on that as well. The ground battle was joined today. There have been a lot of skirmishes going on over the last few days, but there was what is at least described today as the first significant ground battle. The unit involved in this, we believe, is of particular interest to those of you who have been with us over the past week. The 307th Cavalry, we have pretty much followed them from the time they crossed the border to earlier today when we got some filing out of Walt Rogers as they made their way to what we believe this major ground battle was. We'll talk with Jamie McIntyre in a moment, but first Walt Rogers' description of the cavalry's march toward Baghdad.
What we're showing you is the convoy in which we're riding, heading north again in the general direction of north. in a very strong sandstorm. It's like being in a blizzard, except unfortunately the sand doesn't melt as the snow does. Now, this gives some temporary military advantage to both sides, although the greater military advantage falls to the Iraqis. We have been under heavy fire for the past couple miles, mostly a small arms fire, but the sandstorm has enabled the Iraqis to come very close to the road. And if I sound a little nervous, it's because we're in a soft-skinned vehicle and everybody else is in armor. The 7th Cavalry literally had to run something of a night ambush on both sides of the road last night, crossing one of the canal bridges that preceded the Euphrates River. And that fight was, as I say, more than significant. There were machine gun tracer bullets going out on either side of the road. Every Bradley, every tank was firing. Imagine looking out into total darkness in an agricultural area. You can't see, more than 40 or 50 meters without night vision goggles. And you know there are people out there. We had no idea how many people were out there, but it turned out to be several hundred, 300-400 Iraqi dismounts. The U.S. Army 7th Cavalry has just taken 3 Iraqi prisoners of war. Actually, they're very close, that is to say, no more than 40 yards away. But the dust and sand are blowing so badly, you're getting these vague images. They were captured by the U.S. Army up the road, not very far ahead of us. They were driving a truckload of weapons, and that's when the Army apprehended them. They've had their arms tied. They're lying in the sand now. No evidence of any hostility on their part now, but the only mistreatment is that which we all suffer, which is to say an abuse of Mother Nature by a sandstorm.
CNN's Walt Rogers reporting on the road to what turned into a significant ground fight. Jamie McIntyre at the Pentagon. I think we have 2 things to talk to you about right at the top. What we know about this ground fight or battle, however we want to frame it, and the attack this evening on Iraqi State TV. Good evening to you.
Well, good evening. Let's start with the ground battle. First of all, the first reports we got from the Pentagon turned out to be a little inflated. Initially, we'd heard perhaps even as many as 300 to 500 Iraqis had been killed by U.S. Army soldiers. By the time the subsequent reports came in, we were being told maybe it was more like 150 to 200. Still a significant engagement, though, on the ground, and the U.S. suffered no combat deaths or casualties, any significant casualties. Apparently, this group of Iraqi fighters, and we're not clear if they were Republican Guard or these Fedayeen Saddam fighters or some other irregulars, were fired rocket-propelled grenades at some of these U.S. Army troops. The vastly superior U.S. firepower was brought to bear, and the result was a total U.S. victory in this battle, again, killing between 150 and 200 Iraqis, suffering no casualties on the U.S. side.
Just before you move on from that, in the significance of what the war is, a battle where 150 to 200 enemy soldiers are killed is what? Big, medium, little?
Militarily, it's not very significant. It's a very small battle. But psychologically, especially coming after a day when the U.S. had suffered some casualties, it's a big boost for morale. And
again, just we've got the big box up showing the smoke moving across the city of Baghdad. How much of the city looks like that, obviously we can't tell, but from this location, it is very dense, really as dense as anything we've seen. It is much closer into the city than anything we've seen before. Now, Jamie, on State TV, this is no surprise to you, is it?
Well, Pentagon sources are not confirming that this is actually Iraqi television that was hit, except what they have told me is Iraqi television was on the list of targets to be hit very soon, sort of like right about this time. So it's very likely that that's what's happening here. And the other thing that I would stress is that they may have in fact hit the tower or the transmitter and not the Ministry of Information itself. It's not clear. What the U.S. is operating under these days is something they call effects-based warfare, where they try to create the maximum effect with the minimum amount of munitions. In this case, the effect is to take the television off the air, and you don't need to level the whole building or complex to do that. So they'll probably just check to see whether it's on the air and decide whether they need to take any more action.
Well, we can tell them from our reporters there that it's not on the air. So they know at least that much for now. Now, on to the Secretary's Day. Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld woke up to see front page headlines that were roundly critical of the war plan.
And here's what Secretary Rumsfeld would say about that. He'd say, first of all, it's hard to criticize a war plan if you don't know what the war plan is. And he assures us that we don't know the war plan and nobody has reported the war plan. And it's they claim, a very methodically thought out plan. They went over it. It went through at least 20 different versions. They've been over it for months. And the key, he says, is for people to understand that it may take days or weeks and to have patience.